Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. Really quick before this episode starts, this is the Break the Bank version of a deck tech on Yennett Cryptic Sovereign, so if you haven't seen that deck tech yet, make sure you check that episode out first because, well, this Break the Bank version might not make all that much sense without it. Regardless, both that episode and this one come to you courtesy of John, who's been supporting this channel as a Golden Pig tier patron. And actually, for these episodes, John wanted to dedicate them to their friend Alex, so happy birthday, Alex. So on Alex's Break the Bank for Yennett Cryptic Sovereign, I'm going to be walking you through what cards we're going to be adding into the deck with that upgraded budget and what cards we're going to be taking out. So with all that said, let's jump into it. So with this upgraded budget, we're going to be upgrading some of our mana rocks with cards like Sol Ring, Coalition Relic, and Skyclave Relic. And actually, I probably should have mentioned this before, but just a reminder, I set an additional challenge for this deck for myself when building it, that every single card in it would have an odd converted mana cost, again, because Yennett hits things off the top, and if they are odd, we can cast them for free. So again, Sol Ring being a 1-mana mana rock that taps for colorless is absolutely fantastic in this and many other decks out there. Calling it efficient is an understatement. This thing is hyper efficient, one of the most efficient cards out there. Regardless, next up there's Coalition Relic, which can be a fantastic card as well. It can tap to add 1 mana of any color, or we can tap to put a charge counter on it. And then at the beginning of our pre-combat main phase, remove all charge counters from it and add 1 mana of any color for each charge counter move this way. So we can essentially either tap this for mana or store up that mana for the next turn. And then Skyclave Relic can also tap for 1 mana of any color, but it also has Kicker 3 and it's indestructible, and when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, we get 2 tap tokens that are copies of it. So earlier in the game, we can just get this down, and later in the game, when we've got enough mana to kick it, we can and get triple the value. And speaking of value, we're also going to be adding in Whisper Soak Cloak, which says equipped creature can't be blocked and has Shroud. So by attaching this to Yennett, we are guaranteed to get her through in combat, which again is huge. But more importantly, Shroud can be incredibly impactful. Again, we really don't care all that much about targeting Yennett ourselves, but our opponents very well might want to stop us by getting rid of Yennett. And if it has Shroud, it's going to be really hard to do so. So again, the combination of this card being protection in combat and protection from target removal, this can be a fantastic addition. Speaking of fantastic additions, let's talk about Soothsaying, Haunted Crossroads, and Amanatu the Fate Shifter. Soothsaying is an enchantment for just a blue that says pay 3 blue, shuffle your library. So if we know what's on top and we don't like it, we can shuffle it away. And then of course, by paying X, we can look at the top X cards of our library and put them back in any order. So yeah, this is a fantastic, repeatable way to actually get things on the top of our library in the order that we want for when Yennett attacks, and we can cast something massive for free with this. Speaking of which, there's Haunted Crossroads, which is an enchantment for 2 and a black, and it has pay a black, put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. This can be a nightmare for our opponents to play against. If they happen to get rid of one of our big creatures, well, we can just get it out of our graveyard and on top of our library for our commander to get out for us again. And of course, keep in mind that if you cast something like you find the villain's lair and you draw 2 cards to discard 2 cards, you can just ditch some massive creatures to put in your graveyard to set yourself up with this anyways. And then Amanatu the Fate Shifter is a planeswalker with a +1, draw a card, then put a card from your hand on top of your library. So again, this can be a great way to set the top of our library something massive from our hand. Amanatu also has -1, exiling another target permanent you own, then return to the battlefield under your control. We actually have a good amount of fantastic ETBs in this deck, so being able to actually get those again can be huge with this. Next up, some other great ways to set the top of our library though come with Varragoth, Bloodsky Sire, and Doom Whisperer. Varragoth is a 2/3 Death Touch, and it has Boast. By paying 1 and a black, target player searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. And again, Boast essentially means that we can only activate this if this creature attacked this turn. and only once each turn, but still, being able to essentially tutor for any card in our deck for just 2 mana and put that card directly on top for our commander to cheat out, that is incredibly impactful. Speaking of which, there's Doom Whisperer, a 6/6 with Flample that has pay 2 life Surveil 2. And Surveil 2 is basically like Scrying, but instead of putting the cards on the bottom of our library, put them into our graveyard. So this is a repeatable way that we can essentially for free, I mean, yes, it does cost life, but still life is an abundant resource in Commander, to actually get the top of our library essentially exactly where we want it to be. So before we attack with our commander, we can actually just keep surveilling again and again and again until we hit the exact thing that we want, and our opponents are going to be in big trouble with this. And speaking of big trouble, a card that can be really impactful is Wandering Archaic. It's a 4/4 avatar that says whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, they may pay 2. If they don't, you may cast that spell, you may choose targets for the copy. 2 is a good amount of tax on a spell, and it's an amount that players typically are not going to want to pay. So most of the time, we're going to be casting our opponent's spells along with them. But also, really quick, this is an NBFC, and on the back, we've got Explore the Vastlands, a sorcery for 3. It says each player looks at the top 5 cards of their library, reveals a land card and or an instant or sorcery card from among them, then puts the cards they revealed this way into their hand and the rest of your library in a random order. Each player gains 3 life. The vast majority of the time, we're not going to be casting this side, but you never know. Regardless, we've got some even bigger creatures that we're going to be adding in with Sepulchral Primordial, Hullbreaker Horror, and Sephara Sky's Blade. The Primordial has, when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent you may put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard on the battlefield under your control. This is a massive ETB that can really swing the game into our favor, depending on what's in our opponent's graveyards. And speaking of swinging the game into our favor, let's talk about Hullbreaker Horror, which has flash, it can't be countered, and when we cast a spell, we choose up to 1. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Basically, it turns all of our spells into bounce spells that can bounce, well, spells, or, non-land permanents. This is an incredible card, and it can be very obnoxious to deal with. Speaking of which, Sephara Sky's Blade can make our flyers obnoxious to deal with because it's a 7/7 flying lifelink angel that says other creatures you control with flying have indestructible. So this can protect our commander as well as a good amount of our creatures too. But we're also going to be adding in some massive Eldrazi into this deck with Void Winnower and Pathrazor of Ulamog. Void Winnower says your opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana cost, and also your opponents can't block with creatures with even converted mana cost. So this can shut down our opponents from casting a ton of things, and it can help get our creatures through because it's going to be very hard for them to block if they've got a bunch of even creatures. Speaking of blocking, Pathrazor of Ulamog can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures, and on top of that, it's got Annihilator 3. So essentially, when it attacks, the defending player sacrifices 3 permanents, which is very brutal. But speaking of getting rid of things, we're also going to be adding in Anguished Unmaking and Plague Wind. Anguished Unmaking is an instant that says, exile target non-land permanent, you lose 3 life. So this can deal with pretty much anything, and at the cost of just 3 life, that's going to be well worth it. And then, of course, Plague Wind says, draw creatures you don't control, they can't be regenerated. So this can wipe out all of our opponent's creatures and leave ours untouched. So yeah, this is a great thing to hit off the top. But now that we've talked about what we're adding into the deck, let's talk about what we're taking out. And as I like to say in these episodes, just because we are taking cards out does not mean that these cards are bad. It's just that, well, when you add cards into a deck, you've got to take some out. So yeah, we're going to be taking out Dimir Locket, Azorius Locket, Orzhov Locket, Necromantic Selection, Forsake the Worldly, Luminate Primordial, Winged Words, Otherworldly Gaze, and Promise of Power. Okay, hopefully I've got enough breath for this one as well. Here we go. Preordain, Aqueous Form, Time Wipe, Soul of Eternity, Triplicate Titan, Skull Lost Trove, Sarah Avatar, Enriched Coral Helm are also cards we're going to be taking out. And again, reiterating, these are not bad cards. They are good cards, it's just that we're replacing them with other cards with this upgraded budget. That being said, now that we've talked about everything that's going in and out of the deck, let's talk about the price. Again, with these Break the Banks, we take the budget all the way up to $100, and we come in just under that at an estimated cost of $99.60. Keep in mind that this estimated cost also does include basic lands at 10 cents a piece, so if you've already got those, there's some extra savings there. And speaking of extra savings, you might be able to save even more if you buy this deck on TCG Player and utilize heavily played and damaged cards, which of course need a home too. Though do keep in mind that this estimated cost does not include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.